TJR here. If you like what you see and what you hear on this channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you do, you're awesome. If not, welcome aboard. Now on with the show. This is TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast with your host, the Classic Rock Brainiac, yours truly, Terrence Joseph Reardon. So sit right down, relax, open your ears real wide as I talk about albums that I either love or had a major impact on rock and roll or on my life in particular. And be rest assured that there's no country or rap nonsense to be found on this show because those two genres are the enemy. So welcome to another exciting episode of TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast. It's the return of the great Classic Rock Brainiac, aka Rock Sponge, throwing deep dives and glowing album reviews into fans' eyes and ears. It's TJR here, Terrence Joseph Reardon on TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast, with an all-new episode. I decided to do all new to let everyone know that I'm back. I was going to do a re-recording of Alan Parsons Project's first album, and as a matter of fact, I'm still doing it. But this just kept screaming at me. An artist that I only talked about once on one of my old shows, that being the late, great Folky, a.k.a. Ziggy Stardust, a.k.a. Blue-Eyed Soul Man, a.k.a. Thin White Duke, a.k.a. Mr. Berlin Experimenter, a.k.a. Mr. New Romantic, a.k.a. 80s Phenomenon, a.k.a. Reinventor, the Rock and Roll Chameleon. Sounds like the guy was wanted in 10 states, but he was a godsend to the world of rock and roll. Mr. David Bowie. And I'm going to be talking about his 1976 10th album, Station to Station. Everyone's like, why are you going to do like a whole hour or two devoted to Station to Station? Well, it's because there's a lot of stories that go with the album. And also, want to talk about the live album that came out from this said period. Yeah, this album did launch a concert tour and a live album, which would not be released for over 3.5 decades, but was initially aired as a King Biscuit Flower Hour two-parter, but then mercifully it turned into a officially released double live CD, now double vinyl, and double CD, and download or stream or whatever. Live at Nassau Coliseum 1976. And David Bowie, by this point in time, was a huge superstar. I mean, he was one of the biggest rock stars in the world. I mean, yeah, the 70s belonged to Elton John. And here's a strange dichotomy before I talk about Station to Station. Elton John had to pretend was a gay man, had to pretend to be straight, but then came out as bisexual, and his career took a nosedive. He did rebound in the 80s. But David Bowie was always a straight man. You won't read this on Wikipedia, but the truth was David Bowie was always heterosexual. He was always a straight man. And his first wife, Angie, who was an American, made up the claim that David was bi and gay. He said that just to, upset middle America. Guess what? It worked. Because David Bowie ran with the gender-bending Ziggy Stardust gay thing, and it worked. And then his other personas claimed he was bisexual. And then in 1983, he told Kurt Loder at Rolling Stone, before Kurt Loder became the MTV journalist, that he was always a heterosexual, but his characters were given the, would be LGBTQ and all that stuff. So I figured I'd set that one straight for you people. Everyone's like, oh, how do you know that? I go, well, it's obvious that David Bowie was always attracted to the pie and the watermelons. Little rock metal combat jargon for you. But today I'm going to be talking about his album he recorded during his completely coked out of his brain period. 1976's Station to Station, an album which he barely remembers recording, or has hardly any memory of recording. But he did tell Redbeard that it was one of the most important albums he ever made. In a 1999-2000 interview, He said, out of those albums I did, Station to Station, Low, which I'll talk about in the future, Scary Monsters and Heroes were Scary Monsters, Lodger. Those albums from 76 to 80 were albums that changed people's careers, were highly influential, and the way you change the music is by changing the music. God bless David Bowie. And this album, he decided to veer away from Soul Man to transition into becoming the Berlin Man. Because on this album, you still get some elements of Station to Station, but you also got hints of what was to come with the Berlin trilogy that would unleash from 1977 to 79. And then not going back to conventional experimental Bowie until, proper Bowie until 1980's Scary Monsters. But in my mind, between 1976 and 83, David Bowie did nothing wrong. In fact, all 5 albums between 76 and 83, Station to Station, Low, Heroes, Lodger, Scary Monsters, and Let's Dance, are in fact my 6 favorite David Bowie albums. So this is the first of the favorites I'm going to be discussing in the 76 to 83 period. Released in January 1976 on the 23rd of January. Yes, folks, this album came out exactly 24 hours before I entered the world. True story, I was born at 5:46 p.m. on January 24th, 1976, which was a Saturday. This album was released on a Friday, originally on RCA Records, the home of the King. Oh, I know very much. Elvis Presley, and a label that was not every kind of rock and roll bands. Ask the Kinks, ask Triumph. They'll tell you how bad RCA was. That's why they wound up leaving for respectively MCA for Triumph and Arista for the Kinks. By the way, R.I.P. Clive Davis. Station to Station, was released on RCA, but RCA's biggest cash cow was, of course, the King, Elvis Presley. May he too lay in peace. How can anyone hate Elvis Presley? It's just RCA looked at him as a cash cow. And John Denver, who they believed could do no wrong. But David Bowie was like the odd anomaly on the record label. But such is life. And David on this album does lead vocals, guitars, extra rhythm guitars, alto and tenor saxophones, and keyboards like the Moog synthesizer and the Mellotron. And apparently some string synth somewhere on this album. Then you got, returning from the previous album, Young Americans, Carlos Alomar again on guitar, the New Yorker, the Puerto Rican-born New Yorker, who, of course, would be Bowie's right-hand man for many, many years, until Alomar had to leave Bowie's band because his wife was dealing with a back issue, and David's like, what are you doing here? You should be with your wife. Bless him. So it was an amicable parting of the ways. But Alomar was Bowie's main collaborator for many years. Also returning is Earl Slick, who was the lead guitarist on the Diamond Dogs tour and on the David Live album from 74, this time playing all the lead guitar solos on this album. And of course, Earl Slick's guitar styling was more in tune with a combo of Keith Richards and Chuck Berry and just regular rock guitar god hero-is. His real name is Frank, but we call him Earl Slick because sounds like a cooler name, though. Earl Slick. One of Bowie's finest guitarists, and of course this would be his last album with Bowie for many years. He would not work with David again until the 1983 Serious Moonlight Tour, aka the tour for the Let's Dance album. And when I talk about that album, I'll tell you how he got involved with that tour. Then, of course, he got also returning from the Young American sessions, Dennis Davis on drums, who, this would be his first full album with Bowie, on the, which, he would be Bowie's drummer. He played on Fame on the previous album, because Andy Newmark did the bulk of the drums in the Young Americans album, but Dennis Davis played drums on Fame, and then wound up playing drums for David Bowie from 75 all the way to the recording of Scary Monsters. So this would be the first of 5 consecutive studio albums, and 2, a live album, and then 2 from the Vault live albums. And one of the two from the Vault Live albums I'll be discussing in just a few short moments after the review. So Dennis Davis, probably David Bowie's best drummer on the drums. And you got some new fresh faces, including George Murray on bass guitar. George Murray, one of the most underrated bass players in history. I think he was David Bowie's best bass player. No offense to Trevor and the Spiders from Mars, no offense to the late Herbie Flowers, but George Murray had soul, rhythm, and just ass-kicking and an ass-kicking stage presence, especially when he was dressed like a pimp on the tour in support of this album. You'll see some footage from the tour. I want to thank Nacho Video for supplying me with the footage. George Murray on bass guitar, and he, of course, would play on the same albums with Dennis Davis, making the Mad or Damn rhythm section, that being Dennis Davis on drums, Carl Salomar on guitar, and George Murray on bass guitar. Or you can reverse it to have it as mad, as in crazy. Not angry, but crazy rhythm section that just kicked everyone's ass. And playing the piano on this album is a very special guest, Roy Bittan of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. And of course, Roy Bittan would go on to have a huge career as a session pianist as well, in addition to playing with the boss. Of course, Roy Bittan's played with everyone, including on Meatloaf's Bad Hell, but I can give him a pass for that. That's a little, a little salute to my buddy JCM Led Zeppelin stories. Roy Bittan worked with Bowie before he had to work with Meatloaf. And then, of course, Roy Bittan did work for Bob Seger on the Distance album in 1982. Played the piano on that album. Played piano on just about a lot of things over the years. And keyboards. So he graduated not to just pianist, but also synthesizers as time wore on. But yeah, so he does play piano, and you can add Hammond organ and I think string synth. And he recorded his parts for the album rather quickly because Bittan was in town with Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band as they were playing the Roxy in Hollywood, just as Born to Run was about to explode. I have an episode of that recorded from my old show, which I think I'll re-air at some point in time. I may not agree with Springsteen's politics. Quite frankly, I don't like the uniparty period, but he made a lot of great records. And I learned from Mark Alden Taylor one thing. If you hate an artist just because of their political leanings, you're going to be stuck listening to Kid Rock or Ted Nugent or Kiss. I mean, you can't let politics, religion, or money dictate who you're a fan of. And then backing vocals on this album were done by Warren Peace, who I don't know who the hell he is, but he did a damn good job with it. And this album was recorded shortly after David Bowie finished his acting debut in the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth, which was filmed roughly just a few months before the Station to Station album was recorded, which was recorded at Cherokee Studios in Hollywood. And according to Carlos Alomar, the studio owner, was pretty loaded. And some of the members of Bowie's band were trying to keep up with David on his cocaine intake and other various substances. But they couldn't, because Bowie was, abusing cocaine like you wouldn't believe during the making of this album. That's why David has a hard time remembering making this record. Carlos Alomar and Earl Slick mercifully had some stories to share about some of the pieces of music that they helped with on this album that I can share to help navigate the story better, because remember, folks, I'm banned from Wikipedia for life, which I wear as a badge of honor. And yeah, shout out to my brother, Michael Borland of The Bottom Line, Wikipedia. Yeah, so the album was recorded in the fall of 1975. One of the songs was released 2 months before the rest of the album. I'll tell you which one that is. Actually, I'll spoil it. Golden Years preceded the album by 2 months. Yeah, that was one of the first songs recorded for the album, and then other things recorded for the album pretty early on were, I think, Stay and TVC-15, and then the other tracks they would work on, including the epic title cut, which, spoiler, begins the album. So they worked on the album throughout the fall of '75 with David Bowie co-producing with Harry Maslin, who was more famous who had worked with David on Fame on the previous album, is producing the song Fame for the Young Americans album. And Tony Maslin would eventually go on to produce the likes of Melissa Manchester, a soft rock singer. Barry Manilow was one of his famous clients. The Bay City Rollers, yeah, he produced them. And he also produced a thing called Air Supply, which between 1980 and 1983 were probably the biggest thing from Australia. That was until AC/DC came along, of course. But Air Supply, not a fan of theirs. Although it's funny that they were on an episode of America's Top 10 in June of '81 with Rush. Funny. Yeah, the one that you love is Pop Spotlight, Tom Sawyer, Album Spotlight. You gotta love those three guys from Canada. Making a mockery of Air Supply. I digress. So yeah, the album was recorded and mixed at Cherokee Studios, mastered at Alan Zent's mastering in late '76. It's late '75, excuse me. And the album cover, done by, I'm reading this, Steve Shapiro, was taken from the film The Man Who Fell to Earth. And on the original vinyl and the original cassette and 8-track cartridge, the cover was a white border and a black and white photo from the movie. If you bought the CD in the 90s and the Virgin EMI remaster from the late 90s, the cover was in color. Oh my goodness. And of course, the logo design was done by AGI, the same guys who was responsible for the logo design, I believe, on Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, if my memory serves me correctly. So Bowie got the album done whilst making his acting debut, and the song Fame becoming a #1 hit, which was the last song recorded for the Young Americans album. So he wound up taking some of the remnants of the Young Americans band with a few new faces to create what some would call a masterpiece. I call it a classic. My beginnings with this album was sporadically hearing a few things from it over the years, including Golden Years, which was the big hit off the album. I'll tell you my opinion on that song. And hearing a few other things like Stay and parts of TVC 15, but never really gave the album a chance until, I think, 2001, when steal is a naughty word, so let's just say I gave myself a 5-finger discount from Quincy Records because they were overworking me, underpaying me, so I took matters in my own hands and decided to take home the CD. I was clever like that, wasn't I? And played the bastard like no tomorrow, and loved the album right from the get-go. And it has a lot of different styles on it. There's like some of the remnants of the Blue-Eyed Soul, experimenting with progressive rock, art rock, krautrock, a bunch of different genres. And this album just hit me right off the bat. And a lot of things with this album about Station to Station, just, enjoy the album. And there's a few stories I want to share before I get into the review. Actually, I'll talk about more parts of the album as I talk about the album. But this album here is just amazing. Despite the fact it only has 6 songs and it clocks in just barely 37 minutes, and the 2 mixes of the album differentiate, the original 1975-76 mix and the 2010 Harry Maslin remix for that album's box set that came out just before David Bowie's passing. And what do I think of the songs? Well, I'll begin right now. We begin with the 10-minute progressive rock title opus. The title opus, yeah, the title track to the album, which begins with a bunch of synthesized train noise, which I think was done by the ARP Odyssey. And then the next thing you hear, like a minute in, is Earl Slick's batty guitar sustaining that note, and then Roy Bittan's dun, dun, dun. And each instrument just comes in slowly but surely. And then the next thing you hear is George Murray's bum, bum, bum. And then Dennis Davis's drums. Each instrument just coming in, it's like pure perfection. If you're listening to like anything from Pink Floyd, if like one instrument comes in, then the next, and I'm a fan of that shit. And then Carlos Alomar's 2 rhythm guitars come in as Earl Slick is just going completely nuts. And then the drums kick in, and they jam on this intro for I think 2 or 3 minutes. It's like a 2 or 3 minute intro until the vocals come in, and we're welcomed by a new persona, the Thin White Duke. I think the 4th persona David Bowie had. It's not like the guy was wanted in 10 states. Like I said, it's a joke. The return of the Thin White Duke throwing darts in lovers' eyes. And about the song, David Bowie was painfully intimately aware of the tension between the desire to experience deep feelings and the desire to attain cold safety frequently by being an alien outside and aloof. Arguably, that kind of tension lies close to the center of addictive behaviors, and this song was written at the height of Bowie's cocaine addiction. Imagery conveying this struggle abound, he projects himself as a cynical, callous god, then transitions into a passionate longing to escape the cold numbness of detachment for the passion and ardor of true feelings. The second part of the song, he casts about for a solution to the problem, a person, a power, or just an attempt at bravado, anything to create even a glimmer of true feelings. He knows that others experiencing this afraid are dead inside of him. And the third part of the song is a culmination of his tragedy. He desperately wants to convince himself that something had changed, and is desperate as this darn thing pops up here. Okay, and yeah, here we are. The third part of is the culmination of his tragedy. He desperately wants to convince himself that something had changed. His desperation to be somewhere and someone that he is not. He once again shuts off any hope of achieving true connection with his feelings. And the song is a bit ingenuous. Okay. And this song's lyrics, as I read the darn thing here, the lyrics are, the first verse, here are we when magical moments such as the stuff from where dreams are woven, bending sound, dredging the ocean, lost in my circle. Here I am, flashing no color, tall in this room overlooking the ocean. Here are we one magical moment from Kether to Malkuth. Now I know what he was saying. In fact, the lyrics were printed on the 1999 Abbey Road CD remaster. So you get the lyrics on there. So that's what I'm reading from. There are you drive like a demon from station to station. Then the repeat of the chorus, but with some extra added bits. The return of the Thin White Duke throwing darts in lovers' eyes. Repeated that line, and then a repeat of that Thin White Duke, but making sure white stains. And then the second half of the song goes in this crazy, I guess you could call it funk disco meets prog hard rock second half. And yeah, once there were mountains or on mountains, and once there were sunbirds to soar with, and then once I could never be down, got to keep on searching and searching, and oh, what will I be believing, and who will connect with me, love? Wonder who, wonder when. Have you sought fortune evasive and shy? Drink to the men who protect you and I. Drink, drain your glass, raise your glass high. And then, it's not the side effects of the cocaine. I'm thinking that it must be love. And then, it's too late to be grateful. It's too late to be late again. It's too late to be hateful. The European canon is here. I'm seeing how Bowie would sing that part live in later years, as of 1977, 78. Although, he does the falsetto in the 76 live versions, alternating with that later vocal delivery. I must be only one in a million. I won't let the day pass without her. Repeating the chorus again. Should I believe that I've been stricken? Does my face show some kind of glow? Then repeated the chorus. And then Earl Slick's amazing guitar solo, just kicking everyone right square in the nuts. Just shredding like as if Keith Richards and Chuck Berry were playing over a funk disco workout. Oh my goodness. And of course, a repeat of the second the second verse and the second half of the song and the latter part, and then just jamming on the It's Too Late. Brilliant, brilliant epic. I mean, it's got something for everyone. And at 10 minutes and 15 seconds or so, it's the longest David Bowie studio recording released during his lifetime. The song clocked in at an epic 10 minutes and 15 seconds. And the song right here would, was a perfect way to begin the album. And it also would be a song that would be a concert staple for Bowie for many, many years. And this song would be played live on many tours over the years, including the tour in support of the album. In fact, it was the opening song on the subsequent tour, with a gentleman named Stacey Hayden having to replace a Canadian who had to replace Earl Slick at the last minute, with a Telecaster just going completely nuts. You should have recorded with Bowie, but never mind. But, Stacey Hayden playing the lead guitar thing with a Telecaster, just kicking ass. And Tony Kaye of Yes, the original keyboard player for Yes, replaced Roy Bittan and had to do all the keyboards on the tour, relying on just 3 keyboards: a grand piano, a Selena string synthesizer, and a Hammond organ. And Tony Kaye did a kick-ass job. Oh my goodness. And of course, the live versions will give it a little more edge kicking, and David Bowie throwing in some falsetto bits. And then, alternating between the European cannon is here, yes it's here. Alternating that and the European cannon is here, yes it's here. Oh my goodness. So Bowie knew to switch things up a bit. And then, of course, that way I just sang the chorus, the European cannon is here, that's how he would sing it for every subsequent tour, starting on the 1978 Ice Solar 2 tour, which I think is the best version of that track, which began that, and that was the first tour where they recreated the intro with a combo of synthesizers played by Roger Powell of Utopia and Adrian Belew, who had just left Frank Zappa's band. So he was the only drug-free teetotaler in Bowie's band in 78. And Adrian Belew became a lifelong friend of Bowie. Yeah, or as Frank Zappa called him, Captain Tom. You gotta love Frank Zappa, because Frank Zappa was pissed that David Bowie snatched his guitarist. But Adrian Belew working with Bowie was a pure stroke of genius. And Adrian Belew would easily recreate Earl Slick's intro by just, doing some crazy shit with his Fender Stratocaster, as Roger Powell programmed an ARP Odyssey to do that slow, to turn it into a train leaving the station, speeding on a locomotive at night to hell, and Adrian Belew doing the whistle thing, and then Sean Mays having to do the dun dun on the piano, and then George Murray and Dennis Davis on their respective roles, and then Simon House had to do the first rhythm guitar part by plucking an electric violin, going dun 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 dun. Oh my goodness! And then Carlos Alomar, and then during that intro, Adrian Belew on that live version was the damn star of the damn thing, and then David Bowie walked back on stage to sing the song, and the only falsetto in those live versions he would do was the ooh, oh my goodness, which was killer. And a trait that would remain in live performances of Station to Station for years to come. And then, of course, Bowie would end the song in live performance with a reprise of the Return of the Thin White Duke throwing darts in lovers' eyes, which was the second chorus he did a reprise of from the first movement to end the song, which on the studio version, the song just fades out. Live versions, he gave it a proper ending. And then another live version would be from 1983's tour in support of Let's Dance, the Serious Moonlight Tour, with Earl Slick returning to play lead guitar with Bowie, and just whammy barring it is DiMarzio Strat, the red one, just doing dive bombs at his amplifier, and Dave LeBolt doing the synthesizer stuff with a Polymoog. And then instead of a piano, it was the Borneo Horns doing the saxophones, with Steve Elson on baritone saxophone. Tenor saxophone played by Stanley Harrison doing the dun, dun. And then the higher notes on another tenor was Lenny Pickett. And Carmine Rojas filling in for George Murray, and the late Tony Thompson filling in for Dennis Davis. And of course, how can you forget this guy, Carlos Alomar, the only other person that played on the track, playing on the live versions from '83, doing the rhythm guitar stuff. And Bowie singing the song, giving a little more kick in the live versions from '83, ass-kicking that they are. And then Bowie did it again on the Sound and Vision tour in 1990 with Adrian Belew, recreating what he did on the 1978 Ice Solar 2 tour with his whammy bar pyrotechnics. Man, oh man. This song, epic way to begin an epic album, clocking in at over almost 10 and a half minutes. Live it was 11 minutes. But either way, the song is just, epic. Epic way to begin this album. And before I talk about the next track, David Bowie was dabbling with the occult in black magic during the recording of this album, and also became obsessed with numerology. And after a concert, David said this to a journalist: "Numbers weren't favorable that night. We were a 4, and the crowd was a 4 as well, which sometimes means opposition. In Los Angeles, we will be a 5, placed in the Mage's Kingdom, while the crowd will be a 6, and that means that the situation will be very comfortable and with kind and very desirable." And, when everything looked like Bowie was kind of crazy with his obsession in numerology, this album was a masterpiece, and an album that supposed spiritual discovery. And Carlos Alomar said in 2006, it was incredible the dose of experimentation that was in the album. And years later, Bowie said that Bowie couldn't really remember much details about the Station to Station era because of his addiction to cocaine. But he did say to Redbeard about the album that it was a very influential album amongst the 1976 to 83 albums he did, which did have an impact on rock and roll, and new bands were formed in the wake of albums like Station to Station, Low, Heroes, and Scary Monsters, that 1976 to 80 run. And he also said he didn't listen to what the critics had to say, and he just basically said to Redbeard, "The way you change the music is by changing the music." Great words by the great Thin White Duke. And the title track, to Station, epic way to begin the album. And it was also an epic way to begin a concert back in 1976. And it was like the last song in the set list on the next tour, and then midway through the 1983 tour was midway point. A song that got a lot of rock radio play, but the song was the song was what we call an album track, but an album track that just hits you right square in the ass. I love Station to Station. Epic title track. Now we get to the first single from the album, which was released like a month in advance before the album, called Golden Years. And the song was allegedly originally written for Elvis Presley, who apparently declined it. And David Bowie's first recollection of writing the song, according to Carlos Alomar in an interview, was David was at a piano just playing dun, 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 dun. And David Bowie was like, oh, da, da, da. And Carlos Alomar was like, wait a minute, David. Those chord sequences, it's dun, dun. They say the lights are always bright on Broadway. They say there's always magic in the air. And Bowie's like, fuck. And actually, Bowie didn't know the song because he was coked out of his brain. He goes, because it was at the height of the My Sweet Lord thing. Later, the Spirit suing for Stairway to Heaven. Luckily, Jethro Tull, we used to know in Hotel California by the Eagles. And Sweet Madam Blue and Beyond the Realms of Death, and allegedly Wild Night versus Wish You Were Here from Pink Floyd. Yeah, the dun, 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 yeah, the E minor G thing. Luckily, Van Morrison didn't sue the members of Pink Floyd because David Gilmour went somewhere else and turned it into the title track to Wish You Were Here, which I'll talk about in the future. But back to Golden Years. So Carl Alomar is like, we can't do a song with just those two chords. We'll be in trouble. And Bowie's like, oh, what do you got in mind? So then one day, Carlos Alomar and Earl Slick got together and came up with the guitar riff, which you heard. And Earl Slick came up with the gung 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 gung, that riff you hear at the beginning, and the rhythm guitars played by Carlos Alomar was the boom gung 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 gung, and the vocals kind of sounded like a 50s doo-wop thing with a little soul train thrown into the first chorus. The golden years go, wah, wah, wah. And of course, the verses. Don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere, angel. Come, baby. Look at that sky, life's begun. Nights are warm and the days are young. Come, baby. This might be lost it all. Once I'm begging you, save her little soul. Then the second verse. Last night they loved you, opening door and pulling some strings, angel. In walked luck and you looked in time, never look back, walk tall, act fine. And then the chorus, I'll stick with you, baby, for 1,000 years. Nothing's gonna touch you in these golden years, where he sings in the falsetto. Golden years. Oh, yes. Some of these days it won't be long, gonna drive back where you once belonged, in the back of a dream car 20 foot long. Don't cry, my sweet, don't break my heart. Doing alright, but we gotta get smart. Wish upon, day upon day. I believe, oh Lord, I'll believe all the way. Come, baby, run for the shadows in these golden years. There's my baby that lost it all. Once I'm begging you, save her little soul. Don't let me hear you say that nowhere, life's taking you nowhere, angel. I'll stick with you, baby, for 1,000 years, and nothing's going to change in these golden years. And of course, Bowie, with the help of Carlos Alomar and Earl Slick, reworked some of the musical bridge sections so they wouldn't literally get sued by Labor and Staller for the on-Broadway melody for the verse. So they came up with a dun 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 bung dun dun. And like I said, this was the first song that was recorded for the album in the fall of 75, as soon as he finished filming The Man Who Fell to Earth, and he premiered the song on Soul Train in November of 75, and apparently he did his appearance on that show drunk as a skunk. Yeah, on Soul Train he had to mime certain things. I mean, Elton John did sing a live lead vocal to Benny and the Jets on Soul Train a year or so earlier, but Bowie had to mime. Underline the word mime, golden years. And the song would become Bowie's last top 10 hit for approximately 7 years, peaking at somewhere in the top 10. I think it was like number 10 or number 6. It said on the screen where it peaked on Billboard. Then again, I am banned from Wikipedia, which I wear with a badge of honor. And the song was played very occasionally on the subsequent tour, because it was kind of hard for Bowie, because you got to give him some slack, because he was coked out of his brain, so it was hard for him to try and remember what he was playing. And then the song would be properly played every night on the Serious Moonlight tour, with Carlos Alomar and Earl Slick easily recreating their rhythm guitar, their guitar work from the original track, and the drums were given an extra kick in the ass by Tony Thompson, with Carmine Rojas on the bass playing George Murray's part instead of with his fingers, with a pick, because Carmine was alternating between finger picking and playing with a plectrum. And the Sims brothers singing the golden years go, wah, wah. And then David Bowie had to sing the song and the lower. So you go, oh, like taking you nowhere, angel. And one of the Sims brothers had to sing the the falsetto an octave higher than Bowie. Those versions were actually, that version on the Serious Moonlight tour was ass kicking, giving a little extra kick in the pants, especially with the Borneo horns adding their little magic to it, and Bowie going, no, 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 a little soul, instead of going, a little soul. Originally he goes, soul, on the live version from 83, oh, no, 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 little soul. Oh, my goodness. And then the other difference was, nothing's gonna last you in these golden years. That was 76. The live version from 83 was, nothing's gonna touch you in these golden years, golden years. So he sang it an octave lower, but it worked effectively. And the girls were screaming for Bowie in 83. So that live version from the Serious Moonlight tour was given a kick in the pants, meaning performed with a lot of energy at the height of Bowie's comeback. Coincidentally, he played Golden Years, which was a hit 7 years earlier on the tour that was his comeback tour for Let's Dance. Like I said, he played sporadically on the Station to Station tour, but on the the tour in support of Let's Dance, it was played every night. And the song was one of the reasons why this album sold as well as it did. And I'll tell you how well the album did when I'm done with the review. But Golden Years, great track, amazing. Rightfully a hit single, like I said, released 2 months before the rest of the album, and the song was a huge hit. I mean, huge. And yeah, was played very limitedly back in the day, in 76, very occasionally, I might add, not often, but played often on the 1983 Serious Moonlight tour, and then over the years he would play it and not play it. And Golden Years, great track. Good thing Earl Slick and Carlos Alomar prevented David Bowie from getting sued by Labor and Staller for the on-Broadway riff. Because watching the interview with those two guys about how they came up with those guitar riffs, they let's get David, prevent him from getting sued, and let's just try to add some extra chord structures, and worked with David and his drug-addled brain to come up with a classic. So there's still hints of the Blue-Eyed Soul Man on that track, but kind of in transition to what he would do on later things with the, later with the Berlin trilogy thing. And of course, the next track that closed Golden Years, great track, not much more I can add. And yeah, it's appeared on just about every compilation album that Bowie has released in the last little years. Changes One Bowie, The Best of Bowie, Best of David Bowie, 1974 to 79. And of course, the, what was that compilation that Bowie put out? Oh yeah, the Platinum Collection. And the Best of Bowie 2 CD version from the early 2000s. I prefer the Platinum Collection, which was his 3 best ofs, which include hits and album tracks and non-album singles and B-sides. Great compilation, I might add. Next is a song called Word on a Wing, which closes side 1 of the album. And David Bowie admitted that the song was written out of a coke-addled spiritual despair that he experienced whilst filming The Man Who Fell to Earth. In 1980, David Bowie said of the song to NME, quote, "There were days of such psychological terror when making that Rogue film that I nearly started to approach my reborn, born-again thing. It was the first time I'd really seriously thought about Christ and God in any depth, and Word on a Wing was a protection. It did come as a complete revolt against the elements I found in the film. The passion in the song was genuine, something I needed to produce from within myself to safeguard myself against some of the situations I felt were happening on the film set." And it begins with that piano from Roy Bittan, and just an amazing, soulful 6-minute track to cap off an amazing first side. And the first verse, "In this stage of grand illusion, you walked into my life out of my dreams. Oh my goodness. I don't need another change. Still, you forced away into my scheme of things. You said you were growing growing heart and soul in this age of grand illusion. You walked into my life, out of my dreams. Sweet name, you're born once again for me. Oh, sweet name, I call you again. You're born again, once again for me. Just because I believe don't mean I don't think as well. Don't have to question everything in heaven or hell. And then the chorus. Lord, I kneel and offer you my word on a wing. I'm trying hard to fit among your scheme of things. It's safer than a strange land, but I still care for myself. And I don't stand in my own light. Lord, my prayer flies like a word on a wing. My prayer flies like a word on a wing. Oh my goodness, does my prayer fit in your scheme of things? And Earl Slick's guitar fills on that track. Oh my goodness, what amazing guitar work from Earl Slick on this track. With the rhythm section just kicking ass, and Roy Bittan's piano driving the song to its awesome destination. And the second verse, in this age of grand illusion, you walked into my life, out of my dreams. Sweet name, you're born once again for me, just as long as I can see. I'll never stop this vision flowing. I look twice and you're still glowing. Just as long as I can walk, I'll walk beside you. I'm alive in you. Sweet name, you're born once again for me, and I'm ready to shape the scheme of things. And Bowie was a Buddhist, but he did have a soft spot for, he did believe in something. He was Buddhist, but he also did believe in God, because he would usually end many concerts years later with a God bless you to the crowd. Thank you, God bless you, good night, God bless you. And yeah. And then the bridge was, ooh, ready to shape the scheme of things, which he repeats 4 times. And then a repeat of the chorus. And this song clocked in at a whopping 6 minutes. But just an amazing, beautiful song. Was never released as a single because A, it was too long, and B, there was only 6 songs on this album, so it would have been impossible. I think it was a B-side, if my memory serves me correctly. But the song was played on the subsequent tour in support of this album, the Ice Solar 1 tour. A live version does appear on the aforementioned live album I'll be talking about in just a moment. After this album's review is completed, Word on a Wing. What a beautiful, beautiful song. I love it. I digs it. Not much more to add, but a beautiful, beautiful song. Now you flip station to side 2, and we begin with a song called TVC15, which is a David Bowie composition by his lonesome. And the song was inspired by a woman who was infatuated with her TV set. And apparently it was inspired by Iggy Pop's drug-induced hallucination that the TV set in Bowie's home had swallowed his girlfriend. Then Bowie turned it into a song about a woman in love with her television. And the song begins with Roy Bittan's piano thing going dun 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 ding 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 ding, and the oh my goodness, kind of typical 1970s thing, but I love this tune. Great song, and of course the verses. I have to read. It's Poetry Corner here. Up every morning about 8 or 9. I give my complete attention to a very good friend of mine. He's quadraphonic. He's got more channels. Also hologramic. Oh, my TVC15. I brought my baby home. She sat around forlorn. She's on my TVC15. Baby's gone. She crawled right in my. She crawled right in my. So hologramic. Oh, my TVC15. Oh, so demonic. Oh, my TVC15. Maybe if I pray every night, I sit there pleading, send back my dream test, baby. She's my main feature. My TVC15, yeah. He just is back unblinking. So hologramic on my TVC15. Oh my goodness, I'm singing it because it's so damn catchy. One of these nights I may just jump down that rainbow way, be with my baby, then we'll spend some time together. So hologramic on my TVC15. My baby's in there someplace. Loves Raining in the Sky, so hologramic on my TVC15. And then the pre-chorus, transition, bum, bum, transmission, bum, transition, transmission. And then the chorus you'd be singing for days. Oh, my TVC15, oh, TVC15. You'd be singing it for days on end. Shit, what a catchy fucking tune. Pardon my language. Then the fifth verse. Maybe if I pray each night I sit there pleading. Send back my dream test baby. She's my main feature. My TVC15. Yeah, he just stares back and blinking. So hologramic. Oh, my TVC15. One of these nights I may just jump down that rainbow way, be with my baby, then we'll spend some time together. So hologramic, oh my TVC15, my babies, and there's someplace love's raining in the sky. So hologramic, oh my TVC15. Then a repeat of the intro, the played by Roy Bittan of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band brilliantly, and then the pre-chorus of the transmission, then outward with the oh my TVC15, whoa, TVC15. Oh my goodness. What a great song. This was released as a single, but it really didn't do diddly squat on the Billboard Hot 100. Kind of barely made it in the top 70. I think it was like number 66 or number 65. It said at the beginning when I started talking about the song was where it peaked. But didn't really make a difference because the song is just so epic and godly and catchy. And David Bowie thought of it highly enough that he played on just about every tour for the next... for every tour except for the Glass Spider tour where nothing from station to station was represented. But a live version of this does appear on the live 1976 Nassau Coliseum release. And footage of that from Paris is on YouTube if you're interested. Great performance. And then, of course, it was resurrected for the 1978 Isolar tour. Isolar 2 tour, aka the tour for Low and Heroes, which gave us 2 live documents, Stage and Welcome to the Blackout. The Welcome to the Blackout version to me is definitive, and ass-kicking and bludgeon. And then again on the Serious Moonlight tour where the was changed. It turned into a fast shuffle with Earl Slick guitar pyrotechnics. Those live versions from 1983 were just ass-kicking. So the was changed to with some guitar soloing, batshit nuts soloing from Earl Slick, just a kick-ass rock and roll thing into the song, with help from the Borneo horns of Lenny Pickett, Stanley Harrison, Steve Elson, with Stanley Harrison doing the outro saxophone solo on his tenor sax. It's not Lenny Pickett, because Lenny Pickett would have gone into altissimo territory, because I've listened to performances from the Serious Moonlight tour, and yeah, there was no sax solo from Lenny. That was Stanley Harrison. And it was part of just about many shows on the Serious Moonlight tour. Sadly, it didn't make it to the Serious Moonlight live album, but beggars can't be choosers. And then Bowie resurrected it again in 1990 on the Sound and Vision tour, where he played the sax solo like the record, but with some altissimo notes a la Lenny Pickett on a alto sax. Watch Tokyo 1990, you know what I'm talking about. With Adrian Belew and the keyboard player, forget his name, singing the Oh My TVC15, whoa. Good grief. I mean, the link between Isolar 2 and Sound and Vision tour, Adrian Belew. The link between the 1976 original recording and the Isolar 1, 2, and Serious Moonlight tours, Carlos Alomar. And the link between the studio cut in 1983, Earl Slick. And of course, Dennis Davis and George Murray played on the live versions from 76 and 78 respectively. But TVC15, Bowie thought of it highly enough to include on many of his compilations, including the 2-disc Very Best of Bowie compilation, released in 2002, and the Best of David Bowie, the Platinum Collection, the 3 CD set that came out in the mid-2000s. TVC15 for the win. Now we get to another song that was written by Bowie himself, which is the next song in the album, the penultimate track. A song called Stay. One of the many songs with that song title. I mean, let's see. Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs did the song. Pink Floyd had a song called Stay on Obscured by Clouds. And David Bowie had a song called Stay on Station to Station, which the guitar riff was orchestrated by both Earl Slick and Carlos Alomar. It was like as if Keith Richards and Chuck Berry had infiltrated David Bowie's band with James Brown's guitarist, the Carlos Alomar part. into the beginning, which has the mellotrons, brilliant playing by the damn rhythm section, Earl Slick doing dive bombs on that Stratocaster of his, into this instrumental overture, which is just amazing. And the song talks about Bowie struggling with the monotony of drug addiction, cocaine-addled and fuel trying to work up a bit too casually and monotonously. The Courage asks the song's love interest for companionship to stay or do something in a passionate plea that's both aloof and frenetic. Earnestly deceptive, words emotive with precision and confusion that gives him meaning, quintessentially typical Bowie. And the song, over 6 minutes on the album, is a showcase for the distinct guitar prowess of both Earl Slick and Carlos Alomar, and punctuated by George Murray's massive bass and the kick-ass drumming of, help me out here, Dennis Davis just kicking ass during the 2-minute-long intro, which raises the bar for David to start singing that ass-kicking vocal. And that dun 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 was basically ripped off from James Brown, according to Carlos Alomar. And Earl Slick was like, kind of sounded like Keith Richards, like a Rolling Stones kind of guitar riff with whammy bar stuff. And of course, amazing playing by Carlos Alomar with the James Brown dun dun dun, that riff that James Brown was notorious for, his guitarists were for. The verses. This week dragged past me so slowly that days fell on their knees. Maybe I'll take something to help me. Hope someone takes after me. Dun, dun. I guess there's always some change in the weather. This time I know we could get it together. If I did casually mention tonight, that would be crazy tonight. And then, of course, the chorus you'd be saying for days. Stay. That's what I meant to do. That's what I meant to say. Or do something. But what I never say is stay this time. I really mean to so bad this time, 'cause you can never really tell when somebody wants something you want to. Oh my goodness. Then the first of several guitar solos right in the middle. And then the second verse, heart wrecker, make me delight. Life is so vague when it brings someone new. This time tomorrow I'll know what to do. I know it's happened to you. And then a repeat of the chorus. And then the long-ass outro that just brings the song home to kick everyone right square in the royal jewels. That's all I got to say. Stay, sadly, was never released as a single here in the States. I know it was outside the United States, if memory serves me correctly, because they weren't going to release a 6+ minute track as a single here in this country. I know in Europe it was released as a single, but here in the States, not particularly. But a kick-ass tune it is. It was played on the subsequent Ice Solar 2 tour with Stacy Hayden doing some amazing guitar work. He was an underrated guitarist. Sadly, we never heard from him ever again after the Ice Solar 1 tour of 76. Then it was resurrected for the 1978 Ice Solar 2 tour. 2 live versions are available, one on stage and the definitive one on Welcome to the Blackout, which also has, during the intro, some amazing electric violin pyrotechnics from Simon House and Adrian Belew doing the batshit guitar solo, shredding, and slide stuff. I guess working with Frank Zappa worked to Belew's advantage, especially on the live version of Stay on Welcome to the Blackout. And also the version on, what was that, the other live, Stage. And then the song was played live again in 1983 on the Serious Moonlight Tour with Earl Slick doing the dive bomb guitar insane pyrotechnic thing, kicking everyone's ass. Even Carlos Alomar did the rhythm guitar type solo like James Brown's guitar. It's like because it goes into it with Tony Thompson replacing Dennis Davis on drums, giving it more of a stadium rock feel. Then again, that 83 tour was played in stadiums here in the States. And Carmine Rojas on bass guitar, doing a damn good job replicating George Murray. Even that live version had a batshit synthesizer solo from Dave LeBolt. Sadly, it did not make the Serious Moonlight live album. If you want a kick-ass version, listen to Montreal Olympic Stadium 83. Which parts of it should have made that live album that came out in 2018. I know the home video was released in 84, but an expanded version with the songs that were not on the original album one of those wonder ifs. And that song was played as an encore during the 1983 Serious Moonlight Tour. And then it was played live again in 1990 on the Serious Moonlight Tour with that 2 or 3 minute intro. Bowie would have his trademark smoke break, and Adrian Belew just went completely batshit crazy, whammy barring the piss out of his Stratocasters. He actually had a yellow Strat 90, and he would just take that intro and just go completely whammy bar, abusing that Strat of his, just playing as if he was possessed by the devil himself. But Adrian Belew, man oh man, phenomenal guitarist and one of the very few teetotalers in rock history. Never smoked, never drank, never did drugs. Then again, if you had to work with Frank Zappa before you worked with Bowie, you had no choice but to play sober. And Zappa was pissed off that Bowie took him out of his band and called Bowie Captain Tom. See, when I hear Space Oddity now, I can't sing Major Tom, I have to sing Captain Tom. Good old Zappa. He had a reputation of roasting people that stole musicians from him. But then, I don't know what names he had for the members of Genesis for Chester Thompson, but I don't know what Zappa's opinion was on the Genesis guys, but he was not happy that Bowie stole Belew from his band. But worse things have happened. Now we get to the song that closes Station to Station. It's a cover tune of an old, ancient 1957 tune called Wild is the Wind. And it was written for the 1957 movie of the same name, and it was inspired to record it after meeting Nina Simone, who had done her own version. Even Johnny Mathis did a version. The song was written by Ned Washington and Dmitri Tiomkin. And it begins with this cling, cling, and on top of that. And just a relaxing way to end the album. And Bowie's baritone and falsetto all over the place on this track. Love me, love me, love me, love me, say you do, let me fly away with you, for my love is like the wind, and wild is the wind. Wild is the wind. Give me more time than one caress, satisfy this hungriness, let the wind blow through your heart, for wild is the wind, wild is the wind. The chorus, you touch me, I hear the sound of mandolins. You kiss me, with your kiss my life begins. You're spring to me, all things to me. Don't you know you're life itself? Then the third verse, like the leaf clings to the tree, oh my darling, cling to me, for we're like creatures of the wind, and wild is the wind, wild is the wind. Again the chorus, you touch me, I hear the sound of mandolins. You kiss me, with your kiss my life begins. You're spring to me, all things to me. Don't you know you're life itself? Then the third verse is same as the second verse. A repeat of the third verse, I should say. Like the leaf clings to the tree, oh my darling, cling to me. For like creatures in the wind, and wild is the wind, wild is the wind. And David singing wild is the wind 3 more times higher and higher, and ending with that high falsetto, is the wind. That's how the song ends, and it ends with that long outro. Sort of a slow way to end a very chaotic album that Bowie made, but a masterpiece of an album that he made. And the song was released as a single just a few short years after it was released in the UK and Europe in 1980-81. But the song was never released as a single here in the States because, quite frankly, they didn't know what to make of it. And this song was one of the only songs on the album that was not played live initially back in 76, I don't believe. But it was tried out for the Serious Moonlight Tour, but it was scrapped because there were so many songs Bowie had to do on that tour, so the song didn't make it in 83. And then he tried it again many years later, but just didn't really fit in, so he really didn't play the song much live, but when he did, he did. But a brilliant song, Wild as the Wind is, and a brilliant way to end a masterpiece of an album which is one of Bowie's biggest masterpieces. And when Station to Station was released in January 1976, the album continued Bowie's successful winning streak, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard album chart, which for many years was the highest position of any Bowie album ever. I mean, the album went all the way to number 3, It went gold almost immediately. Eventually, although it hasn't been certified platinum, but believe me, it has sold over 1 million copies. And the album, to this day, one of the best Bowie albums out there. I mean, a lot of people didn't like it at the time of its release, but newer generations of fans hear it and they're like, yeah, this album is excellent, Daddy. Ow, have mercy. I sound like, who's that dude? Dude Love. Yes, the wrestler. Over the years, Station to Station has been reissued. One reissue was in 1990 on Rykodisc, after the original RCA CD was available for quite a while, but then was taken out of print because Bowie and RCA had a major falling out. And then Bowie bought his back catalog from RCA and licensed it to Rykodisc in 1990 for the first remaster, and then EMI for the rest of the world. And then he re-released it again in 1999 on EMI for most of the world and Virgin Records here in the States. Of course, Virgin was owned by EMI here in this country. And then that said remaster from 1999 done at Abbey Road was reissued again in 2013 when Parlophone Warner Music bought up EMI and Virgin. So David Bowie, in effect, got swallowed up by Warner Music and Parlophone, but it turned out to be a godsend in the end because 3 years later, a definitive remaster was done in 2016 by the one and only Ray Staff, a man who's done mastering on a lot of classic albums, including Hemispheres by Rush, Permanent Waves by Rush, Crime of the Century by Supertramp. So he had a track record of doing mastering jobs on a lot of kick-ass albums. In his remastering on Station to Station, I think it's the best sounding version of the damn album as far as I'm concerned. And prior to that was a 2010 3 CD, or a massive box set version of it, because one disc had the 1976 album remastered. Disc 2 had a new mix done by Harry Maslin, which has some things brought up and kind of sounded a little more modern, but still sounding very kick-ass, and I do mean kick-ass. And then another disc of single edits, unique edits of many of the tracks to kind of make it like an EP sort of thing. And the last two discs were the Live at Nassau Coliseum performance, which was the towards the end of the North American leg of the Station to Station tour, as I can grab this darn CD from my lot here without my CD collection falling over like a ton of bricks. So Live at Nassau Coliseum 1976 was initially released as part of the 2010 Station to Station box set, but then was released as a standalone in 2017, and it captures the Station to Station tour towards the end of its North American run before it went to Europe. And the band on this performance was many of the musicians that appeared on the album, except for the keyboard player and the guitarist. So it's David Bowie on vocals, rhythm guitar by Carlos Alomar and backing vocals, drums by Dennis Davis, bass guitar by George Murray, lead guitar and backing vocals by Stacey Hayden, and original Yes keyboard player Tony Kaye on keyboards, that being grand piano, Selena string synthesizer, and Hammond organ. And this is like a phenomenal live album. This was a better tour than Young Americans sounded too soul-centric. The Diamond Dogs tour, things turned soul-centric, but the live versions of some of the tracks from the Station to Station tour was many of those songs given sort of an ass kick right in the balls, a jolt. Although Bowie did sing quite a bit of falsetto on this tour, that's something I can overlook, but when you have a set list like the title track to Station, which turns into a 12 or 13 minute progressive rock opus live, especially with that feedback beginning by Stacey Hayden, the band just jamming that intro until Bowie slowly appeared on stage. Ass-kicking. Suffragette City Live, great track from Ziggy Stardust. Fame, of course, which was the big hit from Young Americans the year before. The only song from Young Americans that he played on this tour. Word on a Wing, Stay, both from the then current Station to Station album. Waiting for the Man, a classic. Queen Bitch. That was another track Bowie played from the vaults on the 1976 Ice Solar 1 tour. Then Life on Mars. Of course, he had to pull that one from the vaults. And he wouldn't play that one again until 1983. 5 years from the Ziggy Stardust era he played. Panic in Detroit, which on the live album, this is my only complaint, the live version on the album is short. It's 6 minutes long, but they cut out Dennis Davis's ass-kicking drum solo and scat drumming part of the solo. What the fuck? Dennis Davis proved that he was an ass-kicking drummer. He should be up there with John Bonham, Neil Peart, Roger Taylor, Keith Moon, all the great rock drummers. Dennis Davis was one of the unsung heroes in Bowie's band. And to my old podcast who called me a racist, if I was racist, would I be bashing Dennis Davis? I would be. But I'm not, because I'm not racist. So you clowns don't have a leg to stand on. You macaroni brained dumb cuffs you. Especially when Dennis Davis does the the full live version is on YouTube, which you can listen to it on YouTube. But they should have included it on the CD or the album. What the hell? Cutting the drum solo? I'm a fan of drum solos. I mean, like JCM, I can sit through any drum solo. Good grief. I mean, that live solo of Dennis Davis, I can play for days on end, and I get tired of it. I was a little pissed off that they edited it for the live album, but such is life. Then you got Changes Live, which, decent live version, but it's hard to top the one on the Ziggy Stardust soundtrack album, which was live at Hammersmith 73. TVC-15 Live, Ass Kicking, Diamond Dogs, phenomenal live version of that album's title cut. Rebel Live, Rubble. No, it's Rebel. Rubble. Hamburglar, get the hell out of here. Rubble. It's Rebel. Yeah, the Hamburglar made a cameo appearance, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, ending with the Gene Genie, being an ass-kicking tune from Aladdin Sane, given the ass-kicking finale to this phenomenal live album, which sadly, upon its standalone release, didn't chart. Neither did the Station to Station box. It should have done better, but oh yeah, Americans were brainwashed by Taylor Swift at that point in time. She was just starting her Can Do No Wrong period. And Lady Caca, as in crap, caca, shit. Man, I'm on a roll. Am I on a roll or what, folks? And over the years, Station to Station has been held in high regard. It appears on that rag, Rolling Drone's top 500 albums of all time. The live album of the tour is just amazing. And if anyone doesn't like the live album, how can you hate? What's wrong with people? I mean, this was the beginning of David Bowie going away from Soul Man to embracing the Thin White Duke for one period. And there was a lot of controversy during that period, especially with some photos of Bowie doing Nazi salutes and getting in hot water in the European press. And his drug addiction got so bad that he had to go to Berlin, of all places, to get clean and kick the old cocaine out of his system. And that move to Berlin, of course, would inspire more classic albums, which I'll talk about in the future, being Low, Heroes, the live stage album, and the live, what's the other live album? Welcome to the Blackout, which was not released until 2018, but still ass-kicking live album. Lodger, Scary Monsters, and Let's Dance was the pinnacle. So between 1976 and 83, Bowie made, I'm counting 6 albums without a bad song on it. And 3 ass-kicking live albums with no bad moments on either of those. What are the odds of that happening? I mean, you know, it's like David Bowie, 1 minute could be a folky, the next minute he turned into Mr. Glam, and the next minute he turned into Blue-Eyed Soul Man and the Thin White Duke, the Berlin avant-garde experimenter, then transitioning to what he would turn into the 1980s. which he called his Phil Collins era, but Bowie was the man. I mean, anyone who thinks, oh, David Bowie, he peaked with Ziggy Stardust, give Station to Station a reappraisal. You'll be appreciative of that, guaranteed. I mean, I wish I had that box set to do a comparison between the original mix and the... I mean, I've heard the stereo remix, and then to hear the 5.1 mix, because the album was remixed in surround sound. I think it's the only David Bowie album that was remixed in surround. Because I don't think... None of his albums, I don't think, were... Maybe Ziggy Stardust was remixed in 5.1, but I do know that Station to Station was. And my only other caveat of the Station to Station period was that no shows of that period were ever filmed. So you have 8mm footage, his appearance on Dinah Shore, and the footage of TVVC15 from Paris is the only visual documents of that tour, with that those lights are just in the Vancouver rehearsal footage from the Station to Station tour. And there was one other song that was recorded for Station to Station / the movie for The Man Who Fell to Earth, but was not released until the next album. And I will talk about that track right now. A song called Subterraneans, which is the instrumental that ends low. I mean, I'll gloss over it again when I do the album, but this was recorded during the recording sessions for Station to Station, but it did not quite fit because the song stuck out opposite of the rest of the album. Because it was this avant-garde piece with synthesizers, saxophones, chants from Bowie. As I grab the low CD right in front of me here, I got the CD right here. I'll read the credits of low of the song Subterraneans, which closed low, but it was recorded during the Station to Station recording sessions. As I can read this darn thing. Okay, Subterraneans, which was recorded during the Station to Station period, was Carlos Alomar on guitar, George Murray on bass guitar, Peter and Paul on pianos and ARP selling a string synth, and David Bowie on piano, guitar, vocals, and baritone saxophones. But a very atmospheric piece, but I can see why the song did not make the album, didn't make Station to Station, because it just did not fit. It's not because it's a bad song, which it's not, it's just, it was a lot different than what he wanted for Station to Station. So the song was actually recorded early during the Station to Station sessions, but it was supposed to be the soundtrack to The Man Who Fell to Earth, but Bowie scrapped the whole damn thing and wanted to do an album right from scratch, and that planned soundtrack went out the window. So that, my friends, is my look at Station to Station by David Bowie, and its offshoot live 1976, live at, what's that place? Nassau Coliseum performance. And one other thing Bowie did release before I go into picks of the moment was that he did release a compilation album at the end of 76 called Changes One Bowie. And it features songs from 19 Space Oddity up through what's that other? Oh yeah, Space Odyssey up through, trying to remember, Golden Years TVC15. So that compilation kind of, would set the pace for what would happen when Low would be released at the beginning of 1977. So back then, people were releasing an album a year. And Changes One Bowie eventually got discontinued. But what can one do? And then on top of that, the legacy of this album, before I go into picks of the moment, 4 of the songs do appear on the 3 CD Platinum Collection. That would be TVC15 edited version, Golden Years single edits, and I believe, as I read this darn thing, I thought Stay was on here. I guess I was misunderstood. But Wild as the Wind is on here, TVC15, and Golden Years. So you get half of the album on the compilation album. Word on a Wing, Stay, and the title cut. There was no single edits because it would have been impossible to edit those 3. Although he did play Stay on the Dinah Shore show during the tour in support of Station to Station. So he did play that song on a live TV appearance. And then TVC15, he did play live on Saturday Night Live in 1979. So Bowie obviously thought this album highly enough, although he had no recollection of making the album. He did tell Redbeard of In the Studio fame back in 2000, 2001 that it was one of the most important albums he made because fans were like, you know, your best albums are Low, Station to Station, Scary Monsters. And those are the albums that most fans look back on as his most creative and most experimental. And I agree with the fans because Bowie was not one to be cornered into a box. When people did one thing, he'd go off and do the next. God bless David Bowie. Now, picks of the moment. I'm going to stick with the Bowie train here. And I'm going to pick, you know what? I'll pick Live at Nassau Coliseum 1976, which is something for you fans to check out. An ass-kicking live performance of Bowie from the Ice Solar 1 tour, the Station to Station tour. Just phenomenal. Great performance. And if you want to check out more from that album live, I urge you to check out the live Welcome to the Blackout Live in London 1978, which is my favorite live David Bowie album, by the way. Recorded during the Ice Solar 2 tour from 1978. Not released until 40 years later, 2 years after Bowie's passing. And the songs you have on here are Warzawa, Heroes, What in the World, Be My Wife, The Gene Genie, Blackout, Sense of Doubt, Speed of Life, Sound and Vision, Breaking Glass, Fame, Beauty and the Beast. That's just disc 1 or sides 1 through 3 of the Record Store Day vinyl version that was out briefly. CD 2 or sides 4, 5, and 6 of the vinyl record were 5 Years, Soul Love, Star, Hang On to Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, and Suffragette City, the Ziggy Stardust suite. In fact, at one point he was going to do the entire album on the 1978 tour, but decided against it in the end because a few other things came up, like Art Decade. His cover of the Alabama song, which in my mind is the best rendition of the track. I mean, I do like the Doors version, but Bowie just kind of... I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. Oh, moon, with a little disco beat there of Alabama. My goodness. And then the station to station part of the show, the title cut, TVC15 and Stay. The live version of Station to Station on here, I think, is the best version of the damn track. And then Rebel Rebel is the final encore. Phenomenal live album. If you haven't heard it, what are you waiting for? Christmas? I urge you to buy it. I urge you to check the darn thing out because it is excellent. So that's my picks of the moment. Live Nassau Coliseum 1976. And Welcome to the Blackout, live in London 78. And if you can find that Station to Station box set, that would be great too. Although that sucker's been out of print for so many years, it's not even funny. So before I go, before I split, before I say sayonara, before I say goodbye, before I say toodly-doo, here's some recommendations for podcasts and radio shows to give your love to, and to quote General MacArthur, I shall return. Here are some plugs for radio shows and podcasts. I'm going to recommend, first of all, Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp's Rockin' Tours. That show is awesome. Of course, Guy Pratt, you know, from David Gilmour's solo band, Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets, and post-Roger Waters era Pink Floyd. And Gary Kemp was a member of Spandau Ballet, but he's also in Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets. Also recommending Eddie Trunk's podcast. Eddie Trunk may be a little outspoken, but at the end of the day, I can't hate Eddie Trunk because Eddie Trunk rules. And also Chris Jericho podcast, Y2J for the win. Long live Y2J. And I'm also going to recommend these other channels. Michael Borland of The Bottom Line. He's awesome. Those who don't like him, God, you need help. Michael Borland, Bottom Line, he rules. Rick Beato's channel. I'm plugging him. You know why? Because Rick Beato is the man. Rick Beato rules.
I know I had some criticisms about the dude a while back, but that was all laid to rest. And he's interviewed David Gilmour twice and many rock musicians twice. We need to protect him like we protect the guy I'm going to promote at the very end. Rick Beato for the win. Him and Professor of Rock. Those two are being wrongly persecuted by Universal Music Group. You guys, you need to have me on video of yours and or whatever. We'll set the world on fire. Recommending them. John Bowden's various classic rock channels I'm promoting on YouTube. Professor of Rock, like I said. Classic Rock Review with Barry. His channel is awesome. His unboxings are great. He rules. Barry, you kick ass. Darren Locke, deadpan British, but funny as hell. Melinda Murphy, sweetheart, biggest vinyl junkie I've ever seen in my life. And just a wonderful human being. God bless her. Brandon Snyder, his channel's recommended as well. He's got more CDs than I can count. And he's the ultimate CD collector and just a music fan in general. Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility, the man, the myth, the legend, the great. Long live Pete, long live Sea of Tranquility. If it wasn't for that show, I wouldn't have given some other bands and things like the last Black Sabbath album a reappraisal. Thank you, Pete, for that, and helping me escape the albatross that was hanging over my neck. That was my past. And of course, I have to recommend my favorite channel, JCM Led Zeppelin Stories, the man with more copies of Led Zeppelin's In Through the Outdoor than any person I know. And let's just say, I hope he gets 100 copies to piss off my former colleague, Wadzilla in Seattle. JCM Led Zeppelin Stories for the win, ladies and gentlemen. The king of Led Zeppelin, and yeah, I agree with him, In Through the Outdoor is a masterpiece. And before I go, here's some plugs for some other radio shows and podcasts to give your love to, and to quote General MacArthur, I shall return.
Hi, this is Mark Olden Taylor from the Freeform Rock Podcast, where we rock and roll all night and party every day. Come check us out on iTunes and Podbean. Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Chris.
And we're from the Decibel Geek Podcast. And if you love this...
then you'll love us.
That's right. Brand new episode every single Monday. You can find us on iTunes and at decibelgeek.com. And the best thing is, it's rock and roll and it's always free.
Carey reporting for duty. That's right. After rocking the airwaves in Boston for 22 years on WAAF, welcome to the Mistress Carey podcast. And if you love rock, this weekly podcast is for you. I'll introduce you to new bands that I think you are going to love and keep you in touch with the bands that are already your favorites. I'll take you backstage and expose you to the people behind the rock. Plus, we'll talk about everything else that we know and love, like motorcycles, tattoos, skydiving, hot rods, food, booze, and so much more. And let's not forget all of the branches of our military, our veterans, and first responders. Everything you know and loved about the Mistress Carey show, but now I'm unfiltered and uncensored. Fuck yeah! And if you never heard me before, well, welcome to the party. Subscribe now so you don't miss Mistress Carey Podcast.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Brain damage with Pink Floyd.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
Pink Floyd radio show.
Use only as directed.
There is no downside in the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all just...
Your controls are set to the Random Precision Radio Network. This is Floydian Slip, an hour of Pink Floyd. I'm Craig Bailey. Find us online at floatyandslip.com. Write to us at pink at floatyandslip.com. Floaty and Slip is a Random Precision production.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper. I think my Speedo is starting to cut off the flow of oxygen to my head. And that's why I got so temperamental with anyone who has the impertinence to question his wisdom. And hello, I pops his inner courier.
Hi, and welcome to In the Studio. Redbeard here with the stories behind history's greatest rock and roll albums. Follow In the Studio on Facebook, at Redbeard Rocks on Twitter, and online at inthestudio.net.
Well, my friends, that wraps up another exciting episode of TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast. The first episode since last December. Better late than never, but I won't be leaving you fans high and dry for long because the next episode will be either a brand new one or a From the Vault, which I had to re-record parts of it and re-edit to tool and trade to make it as up to date as possible. And I'm still working on the first Alan Parsons Project album. So hey, at least this is me making my comeback saying, hey, Terrence is not dead. He's alive and well, despite all the family trauma he's been going through. And one final note before I go, Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility, if you're watching, brother, I hope you beat brain cancer. May God bless you, man, because I know you got this beat, man. And if we lose you, we're going to riot in your honor, man, because Pete Pardo is the master. Long live Pete Pardo, long live Sea of Tranquility, my man. So this is TJR, the classic rock brainiac, Terrence Joseph Reardon, saying, don't let assholes bring you down. I love you all. Good night. God bless you. TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast was written, produced, edited, directed, narrated, etc. by yours truly, TJR Terrence Joseph Reardon. The intro music and outro music is The Company by JCM of JCM Led Zeppelin Stories. Subscribe to his channel on YouTube right now. And please subscribe to this channel if you like what you just watched. And if you like what you watched, hit the like button and subscribe. Copyright 2026, TJR Rock Sponge Incorporated, all rights reserved. Once again, thank you all for listening. I love you all. Thank you. Good night. God bless you.